Episode 17. He had found it extremely difficult and hard to keep Havoc's growls and snarling at bay at those officers in charge of questioning him, with the way they had worded everything, made everything sound as though he had injured her himself, and on purpose at that. Havoc had wanted to rip them apart for accusing him of hurting our mate. Nathan's legal department was on it, and though he had gotten bail in no time, he had spent the day behind human bars. He had to hand over his passport and agree not to leave the state, annoying since his mate was now on the other side of the country. None of the humans in his shared cell had come near him. His wolf had been so close to the surface the whole time that they feared him right away. Havoc was ready to rip through them all for the slightest bit of disrespect from them. It had only made Nathan smile, to be honest. Humans were so afraid of him, and all he had to do was glare at them. Though the two officers questioning him had smelled of fear, they had not shown it. He could see why they were good at their jobs, could portray confidence and authority even when scared of the man in front of them. A couple of times when he had really struggled to contain Havoc and his anger had shown on his face, he'd seen them both back into their chairs slightly and eye him wearily. The only reason they were alive was because they were in the human world. If this had happened on his territory, he doubted Havoc would have allowed them to survive. In his cell, he had paced back and forth. Havoc did not like being caged in a cell at all. The three humans in the cell with him had stayed along the back wall well away from him. Havoc had turned and growled at them once, and they all had gone wide-eyed and bolted to the back and stayed there. Fear flowed freely off of them the whole time he had been in the cell with them. One day behind bars was worth it. It would show Jayla and Cora he was willing to take punishment for her treatment. Even though at the time she had not known they were her mate, he was sorry for her treatment, the injuries sustained to her, and the separation from her pups. Getting to her was the new problem. If he attempted to take her or her 3 pups now, the humans would be all over him again. Dear goddess, how was he going to handle that? 3 pups, he had yet to lay eyes on them. Had no idea how old they were, whether they were boys or girls. Hell, he didn't even know if they were half human or wolfen for that matter. If they were half human, could he ever bring them in? What about their human father? Fuck, this is a nightmare. He didn't know she had had them in the human world, because she had certainly not come to the pack hospital to birth them on each occasion. She'd been all alone to deal with it. When he had sent for her, he had not even thought about whether or not she had found a mate, gotten married to a human, or had had a family, children. He'd seen her on TV, and Havoc had insisted on bringing her home. No ifs, ands, or buts. It was a must. Havoc had finally coughed up the truth to Nathan, that when they had seen her on TV, he had felt that he missed her. It had put an ache into his heart, and when he had heard her speak, her soft but confident tones, a desperate need to be near her had fallen over him. The desire to be with her filled him so quickly and deeply that he wanted to once again have her right next to him. A need that burned inside him so strongly he couldn't ignore it. Not that he had told Nathan at the time, might have solved a few problems in the way he'd brought her in. Nathan might have actually gone to her in person, might have, though it was likely not. He'd probably still have sent Jackson or Steven maybe. He had hurt her that day, and who was to say she would even see him? He could have gone and apologized for what he had done to her 6 years ago, though now he knew that the minute he would have come face to face with her, they would both have known what they were to each other and problem solved, or at least he liked to think so. His current daydream, her currently being a single mom of 3, had shaken him, but he would have dealt with it. It had been a week since this news had come to him, completely out of the blue. Everyone in the room had been utterly shocked by her announcement. His dad, his beta, and he himself had all been completely unaware, and her sudden begging and bringing them up had him feeling very guilty indeed. He had not done a full investigation of her. Prior to having her collected, he'd simply tracked her address from her company, and that had been it. It hadn't even crossed his mind that she wouldn't be alone out there. He was now a little concerned about Eric Stanton's relationship with his mate. What if that human was her man? He was feared and respected in the human world, someone who could not only look out for her and protect her, use all his human resources to get her back at all cost, which he had proved he was already willing to do. He had acted very quickly in her favor. There was something going on there. If her children were his, there was going to be trouble. She would not likely leave them behind, and he couldn't see Eric giving them up, not to the man who had just kidnapped her and, in his opinion, brutalized her. Nathan had already looked into the man himself. He was 45, fit for his age, did taekwondo and had a black belt, so he could put up a fight, though Nathan knew he would be no match for him or Havoc. The man was a well-respected and a feared prosecutor. He was liked in the human society around him, was wealthy, and the CEO of a prestigious law firm. He was no longer married, had once been, but divorced 10 years earlier. He was considered good-looking. He had short blonde hair and gray eyes, with a square jawline. His build was good, but only by human standards. Nathan was twice as fit and boasted way more muscle. But if he was J-Law's man, he could see why. Power and protection were a must for a lone she-wolf. He sighed and ran his hands through his hair.
Full story is available at novelpalace.com. Click the link in the comment section to get it free.